Hello, I'm Elizabeth Clemens from Live Blood Online and the Live Blood Analysis Training Academy. And in my second of my series of interviews today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Caroline Gilmartin. Caroline is the owner of the Natural Healthcare College, which offers UK accredited distance learning nutrition courses. So I'm really looking forward to finding out more about Caroline. So let's introduce her. Hi, Caroline. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Thanks for having me. Lovely to see you.
So first off, I understand that you moved from corporate banking to nutrition and naturopathy due to your own health problems and those of your family. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about this really unusual transition.
Sure. Well, yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago now. I suffered very badly from migraines and I had chronic cystitis in my 20s and 30s. And I read a book and I changed a few things and the migraines pretty much stopped. So I thought, hang on a minute. Previously, I had been to see every doctor and specialist, etc., and didn't get anywhere. So that ignited my sort of interest, and I started what can only be described as gobbling up lots and lots of books. And I think many people who come into complementary medicine, complementary natural health care, have amassed quite a lot of information already when they come to train. And then my mother was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, and this is 17 years ago. And she was given between 1 and 5 years to live. And that certainly pushed us forward, and we went on detoxes. We studied various techniques and, possible root causes together. And needless to say, she's 85 now, and she certainly was in better health at 80 than she was at 70. And I think that this certainly, well, you know what, the older people are really dismissed. Everything is put down to your age. Oh, that's what you expect when you get older. It's incredibly disempowering. And that taught me a lot. I also sorted out my other niggly health problems. And then I went to put my knowledge into a qualification, and I found the Natural Healthcare College, which is actually a college I now own. So I did what was our nutritional advisor course, and then that was it. I was hooked. I did then our stage 2 and clinical practice. I qualified. But in the meantime, I was previously trained as a lawyer. I did law at university, did a master's in international business law. I then ended up in corporate banking in the city. And, quite frankly, I had this new love for what I was doing, this nutritional therapy. And I just couldn't see how I could manifest changing careers. But events overtook. I think it was 2008 when it was the last big crash. And eventually I managed to be made redundant and I made the switch. And then I set up my practice in Sevenoaks and in London. I went and learned iridology, which is one of the most useful things I've ever learned in my life. And I added on some other modalities. And before I know it, then I was in a position of looking to potentially buy the college that I'd actually graduated from. Well, I was in a very privileged position because I'd done a lot of accreditation of colleges with the Naturopathic Nutrition Association, so I understood what was needed. So I had came at it from both sides, and now I run the college, which is an amazing thing to do, and I'm really enjoying it.
Wow. And so was it mainly nutrition that helped you get over the health problems, or did you maybe use herbs or juicing or anything else?
Yeah, it was a number of things, and I think it's really important to note, and I tell all my students this, that nutrition, I think, is something that people should start with. Okay, people may be drawn to other modalities because we put food in our mouths every day, but it isn't the only part of the picture. And what is right for one person will not be right for another. You have to take into account genetics, environment, and so many things. Yeah, I certainly used some supplementation, mainly food. I'm a fan of juicing, but it's not right for everybody. I've had some people who've been doing very serious juice diets and have become very, very ill. So again, it's about getting to the root cause, and it's about assessing what's right for an individual. But going back to your original question, you know, there is so much more to health than just eating what you would call a healthy diet, a balanced diet, whatever you want to call it. It's mind, body, and spirit. And I think we're learning more and more about that. So I also have studied Reiki. And I would say that, being in the business for quite a few years now, I actually work with my clients far more intuitively now. I'm quite a left brain person. I'm a very analytical person. I'm trained in law. I like to see evidence. I like to see corroboration. But you also have to sit back and look at energy and look at other aspects. And I think that's quite interesting to look at what's going on in the world today, and how that third dimension and that fifth dimension, as some people call it, are quite integrated.
Yes, there's an awful lot of chaos in the world today.
A lot of chaos, craziness, lunacy.
Yeah, I think the world has totally lost the plot, but that's another story.
It is.
So could you tell us about the Natural Healthcare College and what you offer?
Okay, so the Natural Healthcare College is distance learning. It's online learning, but we do have quite a lot of contact. So we offer different types of courses to suit people who just want, have a little bit of interest. We have short courses on nutrition, on herbs, on naturopathic nutrition, on naturopathic techniques. We've got our nutritional advisor course, which is an accredited course. It's a level 4 qualification with elements of level 5. And that's the only accredited nutritional advisor course as far as I'm aware. And it's a great combination of nutrition, biochemistry, anatomy, and physiology. So it's a wonderful course if you are a practitioner already and want to add on a good foundation of nutrition, so you can be qualified to deal with your clients. I think that's a really good way of doing that, because we all have our own things that have worked for us, but it doesn't mean it works for everyone. And there's a little more to nutrition than just telling everyone to eat a bit more broccoli. And it's not just about what you eat, it's about what you absorb. And so we're very naturopathically based, which to me is finding a root cause. But also what that means to me is being able to assess a person, being able to assess to a certain extent body language, looking at their tongue, looking at their nails, all these little techniques, rather than having to send your client for a battery of tests. And I'm not saying testing isn't appropriate, it absolutely is at times. But I think it's important to be able to assess someone confidently, rather than feeling that you have to go and test for everything, which has its limitations. We then have we call that our stage 1 course. We have our stage 2 course, which is training you to become a fully qualified naturopathic nutritional therapist, again fully accredited. by the Naturopathic Nutrition Association and the IICT, the International Institute of Complementary Therapists. So that's quite a worldwide accreditation too. So we are mainly based in the UK, but I have a lot of overseas students too. We do some face-to-face training, particularly for clinical practice, which I think is imperative. But actually, the one thing that the COVID issue has brought about is it has pushed us more into online training. And while my preference is always face-to-face, it has given us some flexibility. And we've changed the courses to accommodate our students who are overseas.
Oh, well, that answers my next question, which was going to be, would this be suitable for naturopaths who are not in non-UK countries?
Yes, for some, certainly. I mean, it depends on what level of qualification they're going at. Now, they would, what I would say is that they would have to make a trip to the UK. If they were looking at doing the stage 2 to become a fully qualified naturopathic nutritional therapist, then they would have to make a trip to the UK, because we can't give someone that diploma and let them loose on clients unless that we can see in person that they can do the job, and that's very important. There is some flexibility because we can partner with other therapists in the state in wherever they are in order to assess them. We do take quite an individual approach to students. We're a small, flexible college, so we do deal with our students on quite an individual basis. But the best thing to do would be to give us a call and talk through what you're looking for, because different courses will suit different people. So definitely it would be get in touch, have a chat with us. I chat with students all the time, and you know, it depends what they're looking for. My first question is always, what are you looking to do with your qualification? You know, and then we can see what goes on there.
So where do our viewers or listeners go to get further information on your courses?
Best place to, I guess, is to go to the website, which is www.naturalhealthcarecollege.com. I think it's worth having a look at the Naturopathic Nutrition Association website in the UK as well, which does a lot of accreditation. And yes, just have a look at the information and pick up the phone. I like to talk to people face to face. I like to talk to people on the phone. It's good to connect, and it's a really important decision. You know, that choice on where to study and where to put your money. It's really important, and I think you need to talk to people to assess what the college is about. The accreditation is there, but you've got to make sure it's right for you.
Absolutely. So I understand that you also have your own practice. Where is it, and what do you offer?
Yeah, my own business is called NutriClin. And, you know, I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist. I'm also an iridologist. And I also use a medical piece of equipment called heart rate variability, which is, I find very useful, which tests the autonomic nervous system. So I have iridology, which is looking at the genetics, and that's really important. I've done genetic testing myself, but iridology gives me a really good snapshot of where the potential strengths and weaknesses are. We also then, I would do things like tongue and nail analysis, again, can indicate where a person is now. You know, we know if our nails are brittle and ridged, that we're not feeling the best. You know, even our hair or tongue is fur. These can all indicate certain things that are going on in the body, particularly in the digestive system. And then interestingly, my medical piece of equipment doesn't tell me if someone's stressed. It tells me how their body is coping with stress. And that's a very different thing, because you can have someone walk in and they look fantastic and they go, yes, I'm fine, I'm full of energy. And you put them on the machine and it goes, you're absolutely shattered. And normally when you say that to them, They are, because we will know this ourselves, don't we? That we're so
Yeah.
busy, we're running around, we don't understand what the real measure of our stress levels are. We can say, well, I was really stressed the other week when this happened, or I had a terrible time when I had a bereavement, or I had a divorce, or I was moving. But we don't realize that that affects us. And then we get to this level and we don't realize that actually we're running, obviously in often in a very sympathetic, dominant mode without really realizing. And I know myself, I found it very useful. If I'm sort of going, oh, I'm feeling a bit iffy, I'll go on the test and it'll go, right, that's it. Slow down, take your own advice, which we're terrible at doing. I'm sure you're the same, Elizabeth.
Absolutely.
Slow down, take your own advice, and be kind to yourself. So that's my practice, and I find those three things work well for me.
You have children as well. How do you manage all of this?
Yes, I mean, it's been a strange 2020, and it's 2021 has started off quite very difficult. Kids are off school here in the UK. I have an 11 and 12-year-old. I have a 17-year-old stepson, just going through a divorce, albeit it's a reasonably amicable one. And I won't lie, I've been tested to my absolute limit. I'm very lucky that I'm doing something that I love. But I think we've also got to realize that just because we're doing something we love doesn't mean we don't get absolutely exhausted with it. So it is difficult, and we're living in a world where having children really does focus the mind, because I look forward and I say, what is the world that I want my children to grow up in? And we're going through such huge change. It's been a really enlightening and frightening time. And I think when you bring this back into the natural health industry and to complementary therapy, we're used to censorship. We're used to people say,
Yes.
really? Oh, that's a load of rubbish. I don't know whether you've had clients who've come to see you. I have, who have, you've done all these various things, given advice, they've gone and taken it, but they think that, the doctor did that. They think, oh, well, that would have happened anyway. That was just, there is this lack of, I think there's actually, sounds a bit mean really, but people don't like to take responsibility for their own health. They like to give it over. And I think that what last year has shown us is that we have been disempowered as a world. This isn't UK centric or US centric or Europe centric. We have been disempowered. Mm. And I think this has come to the fore now. I think we're seeing the structures of institutions starting to crumble. In the UK, that's the NHS. The limitations, the censorship, of the censorship of information and nutrients that could save people's lives. And even more interesting, and also how awful, is the censorship of pharmaceutical drugs that could save people's lives. But what it has done, because I feel like all this was necessary, painful as it is, and it is painful, is that it is waking the world up. And I think that, as I say to my potential students, the natural healthcare industry, the complementary health industry, is going to take off hugely. I see, like I've never seen before, massive opportunities, not for us to go in and push our way in, but because I think that people will start to understand that the information they have given may not necessarily have been in their best interests. and that they have not been looking at the root causes of their health and disease, and that they have been misled by nefarious institutions, shall we say, without naming any names. And I think this is coming to the fore. I think that many people believe health is in the jab in the arm. Very, very contentious subject. But equally, the amount of information that is getting out there despite the censorship on natural health, about vitamin D, about vitamin C, about zinc, many eminent doctors and virologists and scientists who are being censored but are coming out, integrating the medical with, which has some good sides to it, with the natural therapies. And that's wonderful to see. And so when I step away from the domestic drudgery and, you know, it is, you know, the hardship, real hardship that many of us are feeling. And also, to an extent, you have to guard against it, but the fear for our children's future. I also see a very, very bright future. I see the ascension that people talk about that is happening, the change, the awakening, and the change in mindset. And although it may appear, and I think partly due to censorship and mainstream media, that isn't the case, when you go out and you talk to people, and, you know, when we connect like you and I connect together with sharing our views and spreading this far and wide, what, you know, I think we can be very optimistic about the future. And I genuinely feel that, despite it being a very gloomy, cold February night in the UK.
So do you see any positive changes coming out of the COVID situation then?
I think if you watched mainstream media, you would be very, very, well, I think it's getting so silly now. You know, it's getting beyond a joke. You know, in natural health, we understand root causes. We understand that we are full of bacteria and viruses. We understand how to protect ourselves. That's not to say that we should be arrogant. And, you know, I stopped myself in February, March of making a judgment call. And I even would go along to say, as I didn't agree with, but understood the first lockdown, even though I thought, well, you should protect the vulnerable, but let the rest of us get on with it. But now it's crazy. It's ridiculous. You know, we've got a virus that has not been isolated. People are getting ill, but is it any wonder when they've masked up? You've got 44 peer-reviewed studies that say they don't work, and then Fauci's now saying to double mask. We've got a PCR test that doesn't test for a virus and depends on how many CT cycles. You know, you've got the World Health Organization giving this information out, masks don't work, and then, you know, but then you've got this constant contrast. And so you would have to question what the reasoning is behind of that, because you can't find any logic. I said that to my students today when they were asking about, I said, you know, stop trying to find logic in what's going on. You know, these new variants, we've got a variant in Kent, apparently there's one in Bristol. I mean, this is crazy stuff. You know, this is O-level or GCSE, I'm showing my age now, you know, biology, biochemistry, you know, viruses mutate. That's what they do. They tend to mutate and dumb down. But there are other factors, other toxic things. Wearing a mask is very toxic, I believe. That's what my evidence has shown. That's what me actually attempting to try and wear one for any period of time showed me. And fear, and this just shows it's not just what we eat, but this fear and scaremongering is heartbreaking to see. You know, walking down the road and somebody jumping out of your way, treating our fellow human being as a biohazard. And I think it's important for all of us who hopefully don't feel that way, that I found it very important recently to find my tribe and to connect with people, because that is really hard. But as therapists, we understand that we can't help everyone. And again, I was saying this to some of my students when we had a call today, that they were giving information about certain things, and you can't save everybody, and everybody has their journey, and you have to accept that. And you also have to be very much looking inwardly and making sure that you look after yourself, and of self-care, and that isn't selfish. Even if you have children, that is not selfish. It is really important that we look after ourselves, because we're the light workers, and we will need to be here when people really do wake up to what's going on here. I think it's really important. So we've got a very important role, but we all learn as we go along. You know, every day is something new, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just hope that the censorship doesn't censor any information that people are going to really need in the future. I think that's terribly sad.
Well, it is, but you know, you have to follow the money, don't you? Google is a pharmaceutical company, also owns YouTube. You know, it's simple to follow those lines. You know, the V word, you know, is a $1 trillion industry. So I don't see the censorship appeasing, albeit it was interesting that Facebook admitted that they made a mistake about censoring information on hydroxychloroquine, which I thought was an interesting, and also there are court cases going on in the States, and big tech are being shown up for their very severe censorship and their bias, and that is coming out. It's coming out in the States quite a lot. They've just banned another something called Project Veritas, who was also giving information on the corruption in some of the big tech firms, and they've just been banned from Twitter. But it's coming to the fore, and the alternative news channels are being looked at far more. You know, CNN, BBC, their ratings are down on the floor. So I don't see censorship stopping, but I have to say, it is, you know, the amount of people who have heard of vitamin C, vitamin D, who are questioning ingredients in certain substances, I think is, and these are not people in the natural healthcare industry. So I see a very big changes afloat, but it is going to take time. There are a lot of court cases going on about fraud, and I think, you know, we need one or two of these to hit, and we may see some changes. And I actually feel quite positive that we might see some changes, you know, in the next couple of months. I'm certainly hoping so. We've got to keep hope, haven't we?
Absolutely. We have to stay positive. It certainly caused a polarization in the world, and added to the chaos.
It is, and it's really important not to, because there's been a lot of things that have deliberately been put into play to push us apart, not least snitching on your neighbor, black v white, many other issues. So it's important that we don't exacerbate that, and that we gently put out our message as best we can, but leave those that are not ready to hear it.
Yes, well, I was going to say, what advice would you give to cope with the pandemic?
To who?
To anybody listening.
So I guess your listeners have an interest and an understanding and an open mind with natural health. I would say, first and foremost, if you are thinking, well, I'm not sure what she's saying, and I would say, don't listen to listen to what I've got to say, but don't take what I'm saying. I think it's really important to go and do your research. And you will find competing propositions for everything. You know, you will find an article that says an avocado will save your life, and you'll find one that will say it will kill you. You know, I'm being a little bit flippant. So what it's really important is to do your research, deal with people who you trust, but also take it into your heart and your soul and say, what feels right for me? Go with your instinct. So it's important that people do that. But also I would say that those of you with lots of wonderful knowledge is, don't waste your energy. You've got to keep your energy in here. You've got to look after yourself. And if you don't keep your vibration high, because scaremongering comes from both sides. Okay? It comes from both sides. And we mustn't get caught up in that. We've got to keep our vibration high, because we manifest. You know, we are creators. We do manifest our own experiences. So that it's really important for us in the know and with that knowledge to keep learning, keep an open mind, and keep our vibration high.
Well, I think that's wonderful advice. I'm certainly going to be taking that on board. Caroline, thank you much for joining me today. That has been very, very interesting, and I hope I'll be able to speak to you again one day soon. So again, thank you so much, and I'll be following a lot of what you say, and I hope that a lot of our attendees and viewers will as well. So thank you very much, and it's goodbye from me, and thank you and goodbye, Caroline.
All right, lovely to speak to you. Thank you.